For some reason, over the last couple of weeks, I've been casting pretty much only Zerg versus Terran and Protoss versus Terran. We haven't had a look at a ZVP in quite a while, so what I've got for you today is a best-of-3 series where in game number 1 we find ourselves on... Oh yeah, Gresvin. Spotting right here in the top left-hand corner. Playing with the blue Zerg drones from South Korea, we have Dong Regu. And his opponent in the opposite corner with the red Protoss pieces. He goes by the name of Creator. Alrighty, Creator versus DRG in a best-of-3 series. I think it's gonna be fun to get an update on where this matchup is currently at. So, especially Creator is very much so somebody who, well, gets a little bit emotional first and foremost. I did cover that series of him versus Dark at IEM Katowice. Honestly, he had that series in the bag at the StarCraft 2 World Championships in the round of 12, and then he ended up missing a recall because he used recall on an army, but then the Nexus died before the recall could complete. Honestly, such a heartbreaking moment. But anyways, Creator is very much so somebody who pushes the meta forward. For example, if, I don't know, I was considering casting a series featuring Classic in a Protoss versus Zerg, if I would be casting a Classic series right now, I think he would go Stargate, well, every single game. He loves Stargate openers. Creator, on the other hand, I've seen him go for, well, a lot of Twilight Council openers. I've even seen him go for some Robo Facility openers too, where he decides to go for really quick Robo Bay and then into Disruptor drops, maybe even some Dark Templar shenanigans. I mean, I think if we're gonna see some variety coming out of a Protoss player, I think Creator is probably the one to look for. At the very least when it comes to playing StarCraft 2 at a high level. So we should see exactly what tech route he decides to go for as soon as this Cybernetics core finishes up. In case you're unfamiliar, the Cybernetics core is a requirement for the Twilight Council, the Robo Facility, and then also the Stargate. So this is sort of the pivot right over here. As soon as that one finishes up, Protoss will usually put whatever tech structure they want to go to, want to go for, right next to the pylon right here instead of the main base. Okay, so pylon finishes up, Cybercore is done. We don't have a whole lot of gas, a depth first as well, so this can really only be a Robo or a Twilight opener, either that, or he cancels, okay, the Warp Gate research and he still goes for a Stargate. No, he doesn't. Okay, so I love this little game over here. I know I've explained this several times before in the past, but this is such a cheeky move that's really quite subtle that I'm just gonna go ahead and explain it once again, okay? Because, you know, I can imagine not everybody watches every single one of my videos. Shame on you, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. Here's the thing. Stargate opener, 150 gas is required, right? You want to go for the Adept usually and then the Stargate at the same time. You need a whole lot of gas. If you want to go for a Twilight Council or a Robo Facility first, both of those structures, there are 100 gas. So it's 50 gas less than the Stargate opener. Now, there's an upgrade right here in the Cybernetics core called Warp Gate, the one that's researching right now. That one is 50 gas, okay? So what Creator just did is start up the Warp Gate research as the Overlord got close, indicating that he wants to go for a Twilight Council or a Robo Facility opener. Then he canceled it, hoping that DRG was looking, because that's oftentimes a trick that the Korean Protoss players like to play on each other, or I guess on Zerg players, where they go for the Warp Gate upgrade first, because the Overlord, when it first gets in range, peeks at that, he looks, okay, is that thing spinning, is it moving around? Yes, the upgrade is started up, and then you assume that they are going to recheck afterwards. So he canceled it, then made a, what's it called, a Twilight Council at 150 gas, then restarted it up, making it all look like this was definitely a Stargate opener, but in the most complex way possible, in the most confusing way you possibly can, and now it's actually a Dark Templar start. Okay, so I'm a fan of this. The only problem is that when you are, well, faking out a Stargate opener, your opponent is gonna make Spore Crawlers. And it... Okay, everything here is brilliant, except for the situation of the Spore Crawler, because Spore Crawlers are, of course, also detectors. Now, we have a lot of Zerglings, however, on the production tab. We've got a Baneling Nest just about to finish up as well. I haven't had a look at a whole lot of DRG games lately, but I guess we're gonna go for a cheeky little Baneling bust? Is that the plan? Nah, he doesn't have enough links for that. Nah. This all feels a little bit funny, though. He's making Zerglings and drones at the same time, which I actually don't think is that great. Creator now has finished up, by the way, his Dark Shrine. He's also got 3 gateways finished, so he wants to warp in a couple of DTs. Yeah. But this now gets spotted here because, of course, Zerglings can't attack a warping in Dark Templar, and now the Spore Crawlers are gonna get in position. Okay, so even though this was a really clever beginning right here from our Protoss player, I don't think it's really going to work out all too well here in the end. Nah. Yeah, so now the spore crawlers over here, they can move around in, well, more convenient locations, and I don't think there's really a whole lot that our Protoss player is going to be able to get done. Okay, now he does have a lot of adepts, which again is a little bit funky. Adepts usually aren't made in numbers this big unless you want to go for the Twilight Council upgrade. So there's an upgrade that gives them additional attack speed. But now you've just got a bunch of those adepts. They usually just sort of die in the middle stages of the game. These guys, or these gals, they don't really do a lot of damage. And yeah, they also don't really have a lot of HP. They're not very good at much other than, well, fighting Zerglings and maybe killing a couple of drones, but in the middle stages of a game, usually Adepts not so very helpful, but at the very least now they're keeping that third Nexus alive. The problem is that Nexus now started up at the 5-minute mark, which, yeah, normally in a conventional game with like a Stargate opener, you will start that up at like 350, 345. So all of this is a little bit delayed. Creator desperately trying to play a couple tricks on his opponent, but so far it's not really worked out all too well. Okay, the follow-up right here for DRG is Roach Speed together with Baneling Speed. So this is a really popular style that Zerg players like to go for in the current meta of StarCraft 2. Where they basically just make a whole lot of roaches and then they morph their Zerglings into Banelings. And then, well, they throw that army towards the other side of the map. It's really difficult for Protoss players to stop if, well, Protoss doesn't have a very clean early game. And this is whatever the opposite of a clean early game is. This is a dirty early game? Okay, maybe not quite. It's not very dirty, okay? It's not a very messy early game, but it's just not, yeah, not as tidy as you would like it to be. Okay. Creator, however, is going for a push himself, it seems. Which, I don't think is a great idea. The problem is, right, when you don't do any damage, Zerg is going to go straight up to 66 workers, and that's enough for 3 base saturation. Now, this is kind of nice, though. He sniped a lot of creep tumors, he's getting a bunch of overlords, so, you know, it's not all horrendous or anything. I mean, at this point, it's a flawless game, I guess you could even say right here for Creator. The problem is that he just doesn't have enough units to contest a Zerg economy, yeah, for such a long time here, and now the Zerg army is absolutely massive. Double Robo Facility is, however, available, it seems. I'm hoping. No, we're only on a single one. Okay, there was just 2 Immortals right there waiting inside of the main base. Either way, though, very good pickup control right here by our Protoss player, just trying to deal as much damage as possible, picking up those low HP units, and in the end, he actually makes this pretty manageable. Yeah. That was actually really well handled. He's going to start up his second upgrade as well. That is one thing that you can criticize DRG for so far. He doesn't actually have any upgrades. So only just now going for the Evo Chamber. He was sort of planning to win with that push we just saw, but honestly, that push didn't really seem that impressive after all. Which I'm not entirely sure about. I've been very focused right here on Creator. Not exactly sure what went wrong right here for DRG, that his army wasn't significantly bigger than it was. Usually against a Protoss player when they, yeah, don't really slow down your eco very much and you're not really forced to make a lot of army. Yeah, usually you should end up with more stuff. That was also a really nice catch right there. Okay, so I would still call this an advantage right here for DRG, but one group of force fields could turn the tide of battle very, very rapidly. He hasn't really been able to deal any damage on the other side of the map, but now maybe, oh, catching this Nexus would have been nice, but DRG, he sees the Archon drop here in the middle of the map, and I think he may have, well, just sent the entire control group of units back home, maybe a little bit scared of the Queens going down. So that Nexus will actually still stay alive. Maybe these Banelings can get something done. Baneling flank coming in as well from the other side. Okay, there we go. That's what we want to see from our Zerg. Okay, so that justifies this entire game. Yeah. All of those decisions, I mean, none of them were that spectacular, but it turns out sometimes you get a little lucky in a game of StarCraft 2. 16 probes end up going down, and on top of that, we also have that Nexus sniped here at the bottom of the map. That is forcing Creator almost into an all-in. I mean, he doesn't necessarily have to, but I think he should probably, DRG that is, just, oh god, he may actually get a couple of those probes on the transfer too. I think he should just prepare himself for an all-out assault right now from our Protoss player. A couple Archons also get caught right over here. Luckily, the Prism was close by, so at the very least, they do get saved. DRG, I think you should expect an all-out push here from our Protoss momentarily. I like the idea of going into a hive. I also do like the double upgrades here, but it is all a little bit greedy. Because I think he's triggering an all-in right here from our Protoss player. And if you're investing a lot of resources into things that aren't units, right? Obviously, game's gonna get it's gonna get a little bit tricky. So we have the hive finishing up. I think Vipers would be absolutely amazing here to pick off a couple of those Immortals and maybe a couple of the Archons as well, and just sort of abduct those into the Zerg ball. I think that would be fantastic. You do have to be a little cautious here though, SDRG, because yes, he's got 19 roaches here, but there are 8 Immortals out and 7 Archons. Maybe he doesn't have that much Robo Facility production, but he does have an awful lot of stuff. If you accidentally roll those Banelings into an Archon, this can still be a win right here for Creator. Who is, by the way, not... Yeah, he's not adding on any additional probes here. So a couple of Zerglings do manage to get in. Okay, fair enough. There's photon cannons in the mineral line, so I don't think this will really get a whole lot done. I think Creator is just gonna go for one big push, and it's gonna be a scary one. Zerg doesn't really have a set of units that can really contest his army. I mean, his main advantage is just having more stuff. Oftentimes in a game of StarCraft 2, more stuff is, well, gonna beat less stuff. Dark Templar warped in here defensively, but here come the Banelings. The Banelings are just trying to roll wherever they can. Hallucinated Archons also added into the mix. DRG trying to desperately remax this right now, adding on more and more Banelings. These traits are incredibly cost inefficient right here for the Zerg though. Look at the Immortal Ball absolutely tearing apart this Zerg army. Yeah, DRG is adding on, well, things like, for example, Adrenal Glands, right? That's a 40% or so attack speed improvement for the Zerglings, which is amazing. And I think in the end, he may still be able to clean this up. But this got much closer than it absolutely needed to be. Is the Prism still around? Yeah, the Prism is still around. So Creator, I mean, we've seen this in the past, man. We've seen 4 Immortals win games. Okay, 3 Immortals, 2 Immortals. Okay, maybe 2 Immortals and a couple Dark Templar is a little overly ambitious. Then again, though, 21 drones were just killed. And that little counterattack here with the Zerglings turned out to be absolutely critical. Because imagine if those Zerglings didn't just kill a full mineral line worth. I think this game would have actually been very good right now for Creator. Yeah, maybe not very good. But yeah, imagine if the Protoss had an additional, I don't know, 12.5 worth of workers here. I think this would be a lot more playable at the very least. This is also precisely the reason why I don't really like Roach Ravager Ling Bane that much myself. I'm more of a Roach Hydra guy in a lot of these type of games. I mean, this was even a controlled group of Banelings too, right? But in a lot of my own matches, I will accidentally end up rolling those Banelings into an Archon. In case you're unfamiliar with current upgrades, I think it's probably about 19 Banelings for one Archon. Not exactly sure how these numbers line up, but it's give or take 20 for, 20 Banelings for one Archon. It's incredibly cost inefficient. But here we go. DRG going for the counterattack, using that economy to his advantage. GG is cold, and our Zerg player does obtain the victory in game number 1. Our second match of today has taken us to Dragon Scales. Interestingly enough, by the way, there's a new StarCraft 2 patch that went live yesterday. And for some reason, I can't find any changes, but for some reason it's broken a lot of the replays. So in order for me to actually... What are we going to do this time around, by the way? Once again, going Warp Gate. Once again, going Adept. Chrono Boost over there. This time around, it is going to be a Stargate. Okay. So Creator is playing a series. Anyways, whenever there's a new StarCraft 2 patch of any kind, even though it doesn't have anything to do with multiplayer, I guess there were maybe a couple bug fixes or something like that, it breaks replays. So these games, they were played a couple days ago. And... yeah, I can't actually... I don't know exactly when this was played. But anyways, I have to now shut down the entire game and reboot it entirely in order to load up a replay number 2, which is a little bit annoying. A proper first world problem. By no means am I complaining about my job. I have the best job that I can possibly have, but... sometimes the games don't really work along very well. Yeah. It's a bit weird though, because we suddenly had a random patch, and then, we don't actually know what has changed. Just a random patch that has broken the replays, and that's seemingly all it's done. Okay, so, This early game looks identical to the previous one from DRG's point of view so far. So the question is DRG once again putting his opponent on a Dark Templar build? This now makes the Oracle start a whole lot more interesting, right? So, yeah, I'm not complaining about Stargate openers. I don't think they're necessarily, you know, bad. It's just kind of boring when you see the same thing happening over and over and over again. Now, those Zerglings, by the way, they just scouted the Oracle, which is awesome. In a game like this, though, I like the Oracle start a whole lot better because, well, Creator is playing the meta game, right? He's not just playing this match, he's playing the whole series. And even though I don't believe that it's really going to achieve all too much... that queen was injecting for a second. I actually don't agree with that inject. Anyways, yeah, even though it's still a good old Oracle opener, and we've seen this a million times before, I still quite like it. Now, the main... what is going on here? Okay, so... the main advantage usually of an Oracle opener is that you can take a really quick third Nexus off of it. Don't lose the Oracle. Okay. You can take a really quick third Nexus off of it, which has not happened in this game. And DRG is looking at this as well right now. He's like, wait a second. Where is your Nexus? Boy, I can't find it. So it means that there's a quick Twilight Council right now, together with a Robo facility and a whole bunch of gateways, as well as the Templar archives. So are we not gonna go charge? Are we... Are we rushing out High Templar? Like, what exactly is the advantage of rushing out High Templar? Well, you can morph them into Archons, of course. But this is now a... well, again, a 5-minute third base. So, even though I do like the way that Creator plays this matchup, and even though he does certainly come up with some very interesting builds, I don't know if they're good, right? Like, that's my main problem. I understand there's a little bit of irony there, because I picked this series mostly, or this series rather, mostly because I think Creator can bring some really, yeah, interesting games to the Zerg versus Protoss matchup and a fresh look at some of the strategies, but at the same time, I'm also critical of the build orders, because... well, there's a reason why the standard is the standard, right? Yeah, so the end result right now, sure, again, we could call this a flawless opener, but DRG is already ready to fully saturate his gases right now. He's already got 3 bases fully saturated on the minerals, and yeah, he's going for the lair, he's going for the +1 melee, he's going for the roach warren. The lair is a little late. Wouldn't have minded seeing that one start up a little sooner, but the man's already thinking about making a 4th hatchery right around the same time that Creator finishes up the 3rd. So, yeah, there's potential in a build like this, but I also just don't know if it's good. Anyhow, 4th hatchery indeed does start up right over here on the left side of the map. I love going for a standard push myself against these sort of openers from Protoss. Basically, right? If you go up against a Protoss player as Zerg, and you realize, hey, wait a second, they have not really done any damage to me in the early game, and they seem to have slowed down their own economy quite a bit, or slowed down their own economy quite a bit, I could just go for a good old roach speed timing attack. So there we go, once again. Baneling speed and roach speed start up right around the same time. Now, problem is, though, that we do have a pretty late lair in this game, and that might very well give Creator enough time to, well, get an army going to defend, although he's lacking a unit right there on the wall off, which is making this all a little bit tricky. Now they're gonna go into the main base. There is a photon cannon coming up. Nice little push here, though, from Creator, forcing the council right there on that Nexus, that Zerg Nexus, I guess. So that's pretty sweet. My main concern, though, is with this next upcoming Zerg attack. DRG really needs to spend his money, though. Yeah, okay. So the entire Zerg build, it pivots off of the timing of the lair, right? Because, like, you are going to attack as soon as these upgrades finish up. And since they are kind of late, I'm not exactly sure if DRG is still going to be able to go for a good attack here. So I think his lair probably started up, like, 5:45, maybe 6 minutes. I didn't pay exact attention, but that certainly is pretty late. Okay, he's hoping to catch the 4th Nexus here at the bottom of the map, but that's not quite the case, as we have the 4th Nexus here going down the right side. The 4th hatchery also didn't really restart that quickly. Yeah. I actually, DRG has a ton of money in the bank too. I think he should really make a round of Ravagers or a big round of Zerglings or something along those lines. But he should really spend his resources and go for a push. I don't think it's a great idea for him to just play catch-up. I mean, it's gonna become catch-up very quickly here. I think he's been in a fantastic situation for most of this game, and then he's kind of just given away the advantage. Okay, very good defense right there by Creator, not really taking a lot of damage. Zealots in the main base being obnoxious as well. Here's the next transition right here for Creator though. So Creator going for the really quick Templar Archives, but yeah, now finally using it as well for the Psionic Storm. I'm surprised with how slowly DRG is actually maxing here. I think most Zerg players, if you were to compare this to like a Raynor or a Dark or for example a Sero or whatever, they would just hold down the unit button and just max out really quickly. They'd rush out 3-base saturation and then just make a massive army and push when the Protoss opponent doesn't really get a lot of work done in the earlier stages of the game. DRG apparently sort of just making some economy and then some army, but also not a lot of tech. In my mind, he's sort of giving away the advantage that he has, well, created for himself. That being said, though, he's finally ready for an attack right now. +2 has finished up on these Banelings, as well as on the Zerglings, but that Stasis Ward is really nice. That does mean they can one-shot these probes, and that is working out quite nicely so far. Storm is not done just yet, but the High Templar, they do get killed before Storm will ever finish. Yeah, there's a couple more Templar in the mix, I suppose. We're still hunting down whatever we can. Okay. I mean, that static defense right here for Protoss is going to help him out with the defense here quite a bit. There's also some really stellar force fields. The only downside right now, though, is that 17 probes have already gone down. Then again, like I said, DRG was doing a little bit of everything, and I'm not a fan of that. Making some army, some tech, some drones, but not very committed in any way. So even though he just did 17 worker kills, right? And he, well, sniped a lot of the opponent's heavy hitters, like for example the sentries and a couple High Templar and whatnot. He's not really finding himself an advantage because he doesn't really have the eco himself to back it up either. Let me put it like this, if he didn't kill those 17 probes and he killed like 5 probes and traded out the units in the way that he did, he would actually be behind right now. I think at this point he's probably somewhat even, but we don't have the Hive. I think the best unit you can make against a unit composition like this, as Zerg versus Protoss, is the Brute Lord. So, Brute Lords obviously did get a bit of a change as well with the most recent balance patch. They're not particularly common, but they're a really stellar transition. Yeah, we have a lot of Banelings though, hunting down whatever they can, and this is, once again, putting Creator into a pretty dicey spot. He needs to make a decision. Is he going to go for a push? Or is he going to try and just macro his way out of this? So this time around, we have a bit of a different call than in the previous game. Creator decides to go for additional probes. So he once again, yeah, he's using those Nexi to try and chrono boost out as many workers as possible. Going here for the shields upgrade as well, which I actually do kind of like when you have an Archon heavy army. Now, we don't really have that many of them. I'm surprised we're still at Lair Tech here. I'm surprised we're only at 70 workers. In my mind, this Roach Ravager Ling Bane army, it works when you go for a timing attack. So when all of those upgrades finish up right around the same time, you can get a lot of damage done. And it works when you have like 90, well, maybe 85 drones or so. So you have a really big economy. But I don't think it works particularly well when you're playing this middle-of-the-road style, without any tech, without a lot of drones. You've got, yeah, a low-tier army with a low-tier economy, or, yeah, low-tier-ish in both of those departments. I think it's giving Creator a chance right now to, yeah, make a round of workers and just make a large army. Shields level 1 is finished. We've got a couple of Zealots here in the main base as well, being obnoxious. Banelings over here do get shut down for the most part. 6 probes have ended up going down. I think Creator's plan at this point is just to go for one really large army. He's going for another Nexus here at the bottom of the map, but I'm also not really seeing a transition here from Creator. So the main transition Protoss can go for at this point in the game would be Skytoss, but I don't think he has the money to do that. I mean, with 56 workers, he certainly doesn't. So I think his best move is probably just one big ball of units. Now, he's decided to split up his army, which makes me a little nervous, I'm not going to lie. But I guess Storm and properly positioned Protoss units here are going to be enough. Zerglings once again at the bottom of the map. Once more, man. Nothing here in the wall off. Both players making some critical errors in this series so far. Some relatively uncharacteristic ones as well at this level of play. You shouldn't really expect Zerglings to just be able to run in twice. Either way, though, it looks to me like Creator is getting the upper hand of this trade here, considering he was fighting with like half his army. Eventually, reinforcements will take care of those links. And the base at the 12 o'clock position will get sniped as well. That was the 5th hatchery right there from the Zerg. Creator going back home right now. Trying to get a couple more Archons going into an Immortal here too. There's the recall on some of the units, and that is mostly just to try and get those Zerglings out of here. But Creator, okay, he's gonna get at least a couple more kills. So this is, one of the lower professional games that I've... skill-wise, it's on the lower end of the professional games that I've casted over the last couple of weeks. I feel like, I mean, that's gonna make it very interesting as well, of course, right? Because, well, generally speaking, these are very difficult games to now predict, but there are certainly mistakes being made by both players here. Look at the Immortal count, though. Creator hasn't really seen his opponent's main base in a while. There has been plenty of time to tech up towards the Hive, and there could have been Brute Lords out at this point in the game for sure. But DRG has decided to stick around in this unit composition, and I just don't see how he's going to be able to kill 5 Archons and 10 Immortal. Like, he doesn't have... There's Storm here too, he just doesn't have the units. This is a great army against that low tier, that early mid-game army. But against this unit composition, what in the world are you going to do? Beautiful concave right here, by the way, from Creator. Yeah, what in the world are you gonna do as a Zerg? And that takes us to Altitude, the final map in this Best-of-3 series. I decided to once again fast forward through the first couple minutes of the game, just to the point where, well, everything's normal, right? So here we go. What are we playing this time around with the Cybercore game? It's gonna be a straight-up Stargate. Fair enough. No faking the warp gate upgrade, nothing really all too confusing, but we've seen already that Creator can certainly go for some spicy strategies based off of something like this. Okay. So the go-to standard right now, like I said, would be to get an Oracle or two and then into a really quick third Nexus. That would be the go-to standard. I'm curious to see if that's what Creator decides to do. Altitude is a massive map, so I wouldn't be too surprised if he decides to go for a normal build, a quote-unquote normal build, on a map like this, but we'll have to see. Oracle first, although it's rallied into the main base. Not entirely sure what the plan there is. I guess we'll have to see. No, getting the snipe on the tumor. Get it, no, misclick. Hello, twice! Oh no. I think Creator may be a little out of it in this series so far, man. The same honestly can be said for DRG. The thing is, though, the difference is, right, we see Creator making some micro slip-ups with units not in the wall off, not targeting the creep tumor there, just not the perfect target firing, right? It happens, right? It happens. That happens to everybody. Maybe not Cyril, but, you know, everybody human. DRG, in my mind, though, is making some strategic errors. Where he seems to be fine in the early game. He seems to be fine in the early mid game, I would say. But then after that, he throws up his hands in the air. He's like, I don't know what I want to do. It seems a little bit unorganized. And obviously, these guys, they certainly do practice quite a bit. So he must have had success with these sort of strategies. But I'm not really... Yeah, I'm not really too keen on what DRG has done so far in this series. Although this time around, we do have a shake-up from him as well. Alright, really quick +1 melee. Well, not really quick, but rather quick +1 melee. Interesting. Is he just gonna go for a lair once again at, like, the 6-minute mark? Like he did in the previous game? Or are we just gonna... Actually, he may have started up the +1 melee at a similar time in the previous game, too. He's making so many overlords, by the way. Yeah, no, more overlords. There you go. We got a little overlord train over here. For some reason, they're all at roughly the same distance from one another. Very strange. Okay, mailing nest going down. Extractor going down as well. Interesting. Anyways, this time around, we have had a standard start right here from Creator. I actually don't think this is a particularly spicy style right here from DRG, although, well, now he's almost forced to go for some aggression himself. Creator has gone for triple Oracle here, and now he's shown once again a round of Adept. So once again, just to try and confuse and trick the opponent, he's made a round of Adept once again. He's got the Twilight Council, he's got the Forge, but he's prioritizing the charge upgrade. Okay, Zerglings are gonna come across the map right now, so yeah, DRG has been making a lot of them to try and push back a potential Adept follow-up. Turns out that one's not really common, so now we're almost forced into a Baneling bust instead. I don't think this was the original plan, but he does have that quick +1 melee, so at the very least he should be okay in that department, right? He should be able to deal some damage with this, although +1 melee is not finished yet. It's still a good little while away. The Banelings actually just have been spotted as well, and no, don't fight yet. He's lost so many Zerglings. He's gonna lose Banelings as well, right before +1 melee. You can see when the upgrade finishes right over here on the right side of the screen. Oh, I hate everything about this, even though he's still sort of getting it done. Yeah, he killed 11 So after the engagement is when the upgrade finishes. It's still 13 probes, even though Creator saw this coming in from a mile away. I mean, he had an Oracle above the Banelings. He could have evacuated the probes if he wanted to. Brought him to the safety of the natural. I wouldn't have minded seeing that. But anyways, here we go. Wave number 2. This time around, the upgrade is done. Good force field. Very nice force field. Banelings still trying to hunt down whatever they can. Where did the Oracles go? Okay, there we go. The Oracles have finally come back home as well. I thought for a second maybe 3 Oracles suddenly have turned into 1. I mean, at that point I probably would have lost my mind, because losing Oracles at this stage in the game would not really be, yeah, it really should not be happening at this point. I think if this was Hero playing, he'd be adding on more Oracles at this point. More Oracles. I think more Oracles would be amazing here. Okay, well, this Archon's having a good old time, although I don't know why it decided to step forward. It could have been part of the wall-off. Good force fields over there, though, by Creator. And eventually, he is gonna be able to push this back. I was talking about a 6-minute lair start, but no, this time around, we have like a 7-minute lair start. +1 armor coming up. I think we're waiting for +1 melee right here, so why did we make the second Evo chamber? We can't start up +2, so like, why did we... If we don't want to go +1 missile... Okay. We've got the 4th hatchery done. DRG, okay, going for a good amount of workers this time around. I like this so much better. Honestly, we should be seeing a 5th base here pretty good as... Or pretty soon as well for the Zerg. Just get the full 4th base saturated. Start up +2 melee, get the 4th base fully saturated, and then start up a 5th as well. The creep spread, I mean, I've been critical of basically everything in this series so far. I think the creep spread is pretty atrocious here. For this level of play, the creep should be covering the halfway point. Here's the Baneling speed, starting up once again together with the Glio Reconstitution. If I cast games of StarCraft 2 for another 3 years, at some point I'm just gonna become... It's like I'm casting viewer games, but then from guys at the top level. Like, basically I'm criticizing everybody outside of the top 5. If you're not Hero, if you're not Maru, if you're not Serral, get out. This is gonna be, yeah, at this rate, that's gonna be where we're arriving at. But seriously though, I don't think it's bad to be critical. Like, sometimes when I'm being overly critical in a game, I always see the one guy in the comment section. It's like, well, Lowko, if you're being so critical, why don't you show us how to do it yourself? Which I always find kind of funny, right? As if you can't be critical of people that are better than you at certain things. Which is just, yeah, an interesting philosophy, I guess. Anyhow, ooh, good stasis ward over there. I'm liking this game a whole lot better here for DRG now, because he finally decided to go for some decent saturation. The scary part, though, of course, about going for this many drones is that the Protoss player, in the meantime, has been making a large army, and you need to push back that really large Protoss force here first and foremost, right? I think he's got enough time. Would have liked to see the Disruptor trying to get the magical hit in, but not gonna be the case. Okay. In the meantime, though, both players are now going for a transition. Let's see what DRG's plan is. He decides to go for a hive right now, relatively early, considering the timing of the lair, which was very late. And we've got a fusion, or, well, a Protoss fusion core right here for Creator, a fleet beacon, together with 2 additional Stargates, plus 1 Sky Weapons, does start up as well, which I think is really, really nice. So far, DRG seems to be quite reluctant to play a late game based army, just mostly getting the hive tech for maybe some upgrades or something along those lines. So, if Creator can save up a round of, well, for example, carriers, preferably even 2 rounds of carriers, that would be absolutely amazing for him. No unsiege right here on the Prism. I don't know why. I'm sitting with my hands in the air. You can't see me, but just imagine it. Here's the Bailing Robot. Getting a couple workers, not all too many though, and with, well, soon to be 5 Nexi. Getting 7 probe kills is nice, but nothing really to write home about. There's the carriers being fired up. I think the carrier here is a really good unit, especially when you're going up against a mid-game Zerg army, right? The problem is carriers are also very expensive, and they take a while to build. Yeah, so once again, ooh, we're going Ultras, okay. Interesting. Ultralisk Cavern out of all the tech routes. I would have expected Vipers in game 1, I would have expected Vipers again in game 2, but now in game 3 we're still not gonna get those. Instead we're gonna go for that very swarmy army. Okay, good movement right here by DRG, killing that base, getting a little bit of damage done on the army here too. 3 carriers though, I started up. You know what I think Creator should do is hide these carriers. Maybe show them where you've got like 6 of them, and then march straight through the center of the map. I think that would be a really good idea. Zerg can scout this, and again, the top level Zergs would scout this by checking the Cyber Core. So yeah, if DRG runs the Zergling up the ramp here, which he doesn't, he could see that the Cyber Core is spinning, and the only reason to go for, well, a spinning Cyber Core here, since it only has the Warp Gate research, okay, well, now the carriers have been spotted anyways. But yeah, the only reason would be air upgrade, so that's why the top level Zergs would be constantly moving links around the map, even though it seems kind of pointless. Good engagement right here, I guess, all things considered right now for DRG, but oh no, that's our first line of defense? He sees the carriers, he fires up 4 queens? How many queens do we have? We're gonna go 12 queens? Oh my god. 12 queens against 6 carriers is a risky decision. Now, Ultras are unironically good against Skytools-based unit compositions because they can clean everything up on the ground. Normally, it's not so much the carriers that are scary, it's the Archons and, you know, the High Templar, the Disruptors, that sort of army. And Ultras take care of that really quickly. The problem is, Ultras don't have chitinous plating just yet. Oh, there's not a lot of anti-air available here for our Zerg player either. He's not aware of this transition, and suddenly Creator springs the trap. Now, once again, it seems to me that Creator apparently has forgotten putting a unit right there on the wall, so Lynx do manage to get in, but I'm gonna keep my camera right over here on this main fight, because I just don't see what in the world DRG is going to get done against all of these units right here from the Protoss. He just doesn't have an answer. He just threw away all of those Ultras that we saw right before chitinous plating and +3 armor finished up. And because of that, it's Creator who obtains the victory in this best of 3 series.